The the SPBB.
BB. Yep.
I love it because everyone wants to use the acronyms, and I'm like, this is so confusing. SPBB. So the problem with it, the problem right now that we're going to be running into is, do you have to provide the buyer broker agreement? As of right now, no. So if I submit an offer, do I have to provide that and show them that I have a buyer broker agreement? The answer is no. However, the way that the contract reads and the way that the buyer broker agreement reads and the way the SPBB, the seller payment of buyer broker agreement reads, is that if there is no buyer broker agreement in place, the seller does not have to pay you a commission. It also says that the seller does not have to pay you over what you've agreed to be paid in your buyer broker agreement. So if in my buyer broker agreement, I put 2%, but on the SPBB, I put 2.5%, really they're only entitled to pay you, or per the contracts and what they say is they only have to pay you 2%. So at some point, someone is going to realize, hey, there's too many things in the buyer broker agreement that make it so that the seller needs to know this information in order to make it viable or not. So at some point they're going to say it's going to be required. So just be prepared. I personally have not seen that coming down the pipeline. That what I have seen come down is that the National Association, or the Department of Justice for America, is coming after they submitted a letter of intent. I'm sure there's a different word for it, but basically they're inquiring about, they think that the settlement is not enough. They have questions about the requirement to have a buyer in contract before seeing a house. I don't know what their issue is, so that will be fun to see what it is. And apparently, they're all about to be fired come January 20th, so I don't even know if they're going to have time to actually do anything. So could be a bunch of crap. I don't know. But as of right now, California has implemented their own rule on that. So remember, this is California Association of Realtors. So like commercial real estate agents are not a part of the California Association of Realtors. They're just real estate agents. So they have no obligation to our trade association that we are a part of. However, if we want to have lockbox and MLS access, we have to be a part of the trade association, California Association of Realtors. So California Association of Realtors and California itself, I think it's AB 2992 or something like that. I might be mixing up with something else I just saw. But that law requires that we do, and it's a law that we do have a buyer broker agreement in place before showing a house. So if you do hear something on the news about the National Association of Realtors with regard to the buyer broker agreement and having a buyer sign it, it's irrelevant to us because California implemented their own law. So yes, you do technically have to have that agreement in place. Just be careful making it less than what you want. Just have an open and honest conversation with your client and be bold about it. If you exude doubt and a lack of confidence, your client will have a lack of confidence in you. So if I'm meeting with a client, I'm going to say, listen, in my buyer broker agreement, I legally have to have you sign this. There was this huge lawsuit. Our association made it pretty much, they were fixing commissions. I'm not going to get into it about it. But they were essentially fixing commissions because of the rules that they were implementing through the MLS and apparently through a bunch of other things that was going on too. The main thing is that they're always negotiable. Personally, maybe my cough has not gone away. Personally, I think that the seller should be paying for my commission. Why? Because it's coming out of their equity. Usually not equity from them paying down the mortgage, it's coming out of equity from appreciation. So values have just been going up, and I can show you that because I can look at average appreciation for our area and say average appreciation in our area, our greater Sacramento area, over a 10-year period. So not just from 2021. I mean, it kind of factors that in, but it's been 7%. So 1 year of being in your house and you're paying for your agent commission just by sitting on your house. So I do not feel bad for sellers paying the agent commission. And what I'm having to tell my clients, because as a good real estate agent, you should be telling your clients, listen, a buyer is coming out of pocket all of the closing costs. They're coming out of pocket the down payment. They're coming out of pocket for the appraisal, for the inspections. You're telling me that you also want them to come out of pocket for something that you don't have to come out of pocket. Why don't we just say, forget that. My goal is to sell the house, not argue about whether I want to pay someone or not. So if you say, I'm okay with selling my house for $500,000, but I don't want to pay an agent commission, and agent commission's 2%, let's say, then how about we just sell the house for $510,000 and pay the agent commission? That way I know that they're incentivized. But here's what I'm going to do for you, Mr. or Miss or Mr. and Miss Seller, or whatever it is, right? My promise to you is if we're planning on selling it for $510,000 and they offer $505,000, then I'm going to tell the agent to reduce their commission by $5,000. That is what I'm going to do because you didn't want to net that, right? I wouldn't say it all the time unless if someone is really battling you on paying the agent commission, because this is what I'm seeing. Damaris, who's not on the call, but she went and she submitted an offer for her brother. Listing agent said, hey, my seller is from the Bay Area, so they're entitled. No, I'm just kidding. That's not what he said. But they do not want to pay an agent commission. I got them to agree to pay you 1%. I'm willing to give you 0.5% of mine. So you'll get 1.5%. I'm sorry. It's just, that's how it is. They listed the property for $397,000. So they listed their property for $397,000. She said, okay, fine. My client will pay me my other half. So I at least get 2%. But we're thinking about offering $395,000. Do you think that's acceptable to the seller? So $2,000 less. And he said, yeah, I definitely think that's doable. I'm like, can we please fucking do the math on this? Agent, not Damaris, the listing agent. The $2,000 less was more than half. That 0.5%. It's like, if you could just, you guys got to just do the math. It's not Damaris, it's not her fault, it's the agent. So Damaris is getting a great deal for her client. It's like, hey, instead just ask for a credit. So when you guys are out there and you're submitting offers on these houses, the second I hear my seller does not want to pay the agent commission, my goal is not to argue with them about anything. Okay. My goal is to get my client's offer accepted and me to get paid. So I'm going to submit my offer with a 2% credit to the buyer. And that's going to be or 2.5%. And that's going to be my commission. Right. And then I'm going to have our buyer broker agreement that the buyer's paying for that. Why? Because some of these people are just not understanding the concept of what you focus on, what you're netting. Right. I just had a conversation with someone who might be selling in Elk Grove. I don't think she's going to now. But she was saying, I do not want to pay a buyer's agent commission. Is that even doable? And I said, then you're never going to sell the house. It's going to sit on the market for X amount, like forever. And I'm not going to deal with it. Why don't we just sell it for more than what the cost is to pay the agent? That way we're factoring it in. Whatever you want to net is what we should be aiming for. She said, well, how about this? Because I don't want to pay a buyer's agent. How about I pay you 6% and you split that with the buyer's agent? I'm like, this is what people are this is like the point, is that people are not understanding how it works, right? And so just be patient and understand that that's what you're battling with. Is she didn't understand that, yes, splitting the commission is what we normally do. I mean, that's how an exclusive right to sell works, is that I have exclusive right to sell. I'm disclosing to you that out of the 6% commission or 5% commission, I'm giving 2.5% to someone who might bring in a buyer, right? That's an exclusive right to sell. Now we're pretty much totally changing the name of contracts. So if you get a buyer and you're hearing that, I just encourage you, rather than battle them, just ask for a credit. I know, I get it, that it's the same thing, but I guarantee you they're going to accept. So if they say, hey, my client is not willing to pay a buyer's agent commission, no problem. Here's my offer with a 2.5% credit. They're going to say deal. And you're going to say, what the bleep? It's the same thing.
And do you think that it's the listing agent that doesn't, or do you think the listing agent fully understands, but the seller
It's a combination.
Okay, the seller's like, okay, as long as I'm not paying an agent.
It's a combination. I think there's some agents that aren't doing a good job explaining it. There's some people that are just having a hard time wrapping their head around it. Like my client, I told her many times, let's focus on what you want to net. She wanted a net X amount. And I told her, okay, well, even paying a buyer's agent, you're going to net that if we list it for this price. She's like, I do not want to pay a buyer's agent. Why don't you just take half of your 6% commission? I'm like, hold on. That's what I'm telling you is I was never going to take a full 6%. I was going to take 2.5%. Yeah, whatever. Okay. Yeah. So it's a combination. I mean, I do think that there's going to be a lot of agents out there who don't even want to have the argument because they're going to win over the listing. They're just going to say, oh, you only have to pay me 3%. Oh, that person is asking for 5%. Well, with me, you net more because you're only paying 3%. I'm going to make sure that the buyer pays for their own agent fees. Right. I just had someone in our own brokerage in the office who was saying, oh, I think buyers should be paying their own agent fees. I'm like, explain to me how that's going to help sellers sell when interest rates are 3 times higher than they were a couple of years ago. And this person had to go, oh, I guess that makes sense. I say, okay, and think about it from the buyer's perspective. That's money out of pocket for them, whereas for the seller, it's not. And that's where I think people need to understand. So I think it's going to be a combination. It's just easier to submit the offer and see what they say. Yeah, we are dealing with a lot of agents right now. I'm noticing out in the market where you're having to get past their ego. But sometimes there are for Damari's transaction, it seems more like the listing agent is just, I almost said coward, but I'm not thinking coward. That's mean. And that's not what it is. It's just, I think he's a little timid on trying to argue with his client. And so his client is not full. It's his client that's not understanding it. And he's just not doing a good job explaining it to her. So yeah. Yeah. So they're getting the 2%. And so the seller's paying 2%, but it's just confusing. I'm not necessarily seeing 2% as the going rate. We're seeing it a little bit more and more. I just think that there are a lot of people who are kind of undercutting. So that's the main thing. The only other thing I was going to really share today as well is for some reason, farmers insurance. So if you have a listing and someone is telling you that the insurance company is requiring that the water shutoff valve be replaced with a new high-tech one, apparently it is just farmers insurance is requiring this specifically for homes. I want to say built 1994 and older or something like that. It's like a 700, I don't know, the cost varies. So if you have a buyer who's hearing that, it's farmers. Some buyers actually really like it. Like I have a client right now buying and I'm doing the loan for, and he's fine with it. He would rather have that fix anyway. But other people are complaining about it, or you're hearing listing agents throw a fit about it because they don't think that's a real thing. It's just farmers is unfortunately our guys.
Yeah.
Ryan is having to deal with that.
Ryan.
Or what's his name that works for Ryan? Or Ryan works for him.
Is Ryan an insurance agent?
Yeah, with your
Ryan
friend.
Tuttle? Oh, Ryan Conrad with Rob.
Yeah, with Rob. Yeah, so just that's the only other thing. But yeah, tomorrow we'll go over a little bit more negotiating and just a brief overview of that portion of the purchase agreement, the seller payment of buyer broker agreement. Otherwise, we're seeing builders, and that's the other thing is if you have a listing, I would say we're actually seeing builders doubling down on wanting to pay agents more. I mean, they're talking to us about exclusive deals. They're doing bonuses where they say, if you bring in a buyer, we'll give you an extra $5,000. So if you're seeing builders do this who have a lot of out of money costs, I think you should probably assume that you should do this as well. Because that's what you're competing with. I had a conversation with someone yesterday. She said, well, what if rates go down and blah, blah, blah. And I said, at the end of the day, right now, people are, because she said, how are you guys closing? How many deals are you closing or something like that? And I said, people are wanting to buy a new build. If they see how high rates are and the cost of everything, they want a newer constructed house because It's easier to justify that versus an older house. So if that gives you a little bit more arrows in your quiver when you're taking these listing presentations, remind them that builders are offering great credit, which also goes to say that those of you doing those videos, Vanessa's, did she leave? I think she left the call, probably because I cursed. Vanessa's videos are hilarious. Like I always share, I try to share everyone's videos. If you could please tag me, I try to keep up. But tag Vision, not me, but Vision Forward Realty on any videos you post or anything you want us to share and help promote. I'd love to promote them. So Rebecca's done great. Chase, of course, does great. Nate's got his marketing minute thing. David's have been great. I was like, dang, David, who made these videos?
Yeah. iPhone 16.
Yeah. Oh, you got the 16.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Vanessa's been great with her kids and her funny ones too. So, yeah. Other than that, we have our Christmas party on Saturday. Stop the recording, but